welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, international speaker, and of course, the author of Leading Winning Teams. Super excited about that book releasing this summer on pre-sale right now. That'll be in your links below. Most people know me because I spent 13 years in professional baseball coaching in 3 World Series, and I am pumped up on the Winners Find a Way show today to welcome my good buddy, Ethan King. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Trent? Good to be here.
Man, it is so good to be here. I am in northern Michigan, my haven away from the world, especially in the summertime. And man, Ethan, I'm always excited because you and I are doing more and more together. We've got a retreat in Italy. We've got a retreat up here in northern Michigan coming in the fall. And you are an absolute AI expert. You've been a serial entrepreneur. You're a TEDx speaker. You're an author of Wealth Beyond Money. Hey, EK, what don't you do, my man?
You know, what I don't do very well is sleep. I'm definitely trying to work on that.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You're also a marathoner, right? Like you're a runner, you're avid, like so
Yeah.
you're super fit. You got a wife, you got 2 kids, or almost 2 teenies now, by the way. You're coming into
Yeah.
that 2-teen land pretty soon.
Yeah.
And that's pretty awesome. And man, life is busy. Entrepreneur of 2 major brands in Zeus's Closet. And of course, stuffforgreeks.com, one of the best e-commerce businesses. It's been running out there over 20 years. For anyone who's been in the Greek space in college, you probably ordered something from EK's company. And Ethan, your book was met with just great attribute and just celebration of wealth beyond money. I think as a guy who's been hustling since he was in his 20s out to prove his parents that artists can make money and you can you could be a guy because you're a graphic designer at Georgia, right?
Yep.
And
Okay.
studying. And you're like, yeah, like listen, your parents give you the hey, listen, the only people who make money as artists are dead, right? Like there's you gotta provide, right? So
Right.
you realize that things aren't this. So you get this entrepreneurial environment and you start hustling. And primarily as part of a chip is to prove them wrong. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah, it's fair. I mean, I've learned that looking backwards through a lot of therapy and self-examination. But yeah, that was a lot of my motivation is to make a lot of money, prove my parents wrong, that I can become wealthy, financially wealthy, doing something that I love doing, which is art, which is uncommon. I mean, they were right. They had my best interests at heart. And like, it's 99% true that most artists don't make any money until after they're dead. But, I found a way to weave it together, and I'm fortunate for their support and guidance as well.
Yeah, I so appreciate that story, Ethan. As a guy, that was one of my big drivers, right? I'm this guy who wants to be in, the major leagues, right? And everybody's telling me no. And it's like, and again, I like to remind people it was not ill will. They're just like, man, it is like a really small percentage of people that actually get to live that dream, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to have a backup plan. That was kind of, I think, everybody's advice to me because they cared for me, right? And
Right.
so it wasn't with malice that they were telling me no, but it did definitely become a driver for me. It became I'm going to show them, I'm going to prove them wrong. And I
Mhm.
don't know if it was always healthy, if that's fair.
Right.
I mean, I've had some counseling on the backside of that too. And
Yeah.
so it's always been good. But you know, was it just the hustle that got you into entrepreneurship, the classwork? What really drove you in to say, listen, I think I can control some commerce. I think I can control revenue streams and build teams. And why did you think this is what you wanted to do?
Well, I guess early on it started out as a bit of rebellion to authority, and just kind of wanted to pave my own way. I think one of my earliest entrepreneurial ventures was when I was in high school. I was president of the computer club, so like nerd supreme, right? But what I did is after school, I convinced the computer teacher to let me have an arcade. Now, this was in the 90s where I don't know if you're a gamer, but we used to play this game called Doom, the first person
Sure.
shooter called Doom. So I hooked up the LAN network and installed Doom on all the computers. And I would charge kids money to come after school and play Doom. And it was really fun. It got I went to an inner city school, a Tri-Cities, so it also did some good in the community by keeping these kids off of the streets because they'll just get in trouble after school while their parents are at work. So it was kind of a win-win. So I've just always kind of thought that way, like kind of pushing the envelope for better or for worse, because that also got me into trouble, later in my teenage years. But I think that spirit has always just kind of been inside of me, that spirit of a hustler. And I see that in a lot of entrepreneurs too.
Well, you've got a diverse background, man. I mean, you're a kid born in Baltimore, moved to hot Atlanta, and you're gonna grow up there, and you're in an inner city like program, like you said, and yet at the same time, you spent a couple of years hiatus in West Africa, a dream of your parents, go there, in living in West Africa, which has got to be a total different experience for a 9 or 10-year-old kid. Like, talk to me about like what you learned there, and then coming back to the States and having that different environment.
Yeah, well, first of all, much respect to my mother. One of the, I admire her a lot, but um, one thing when she decided to move to West Africa, it had always been a dream of hers. And she had just recently gotten remarried and was kind of starting a new life. But she was like, I'm going to do this dream anyway. And she took 4 kids to West Africa by herself. Now, she and her husband, my stepdad, they're still together, been married like 40 years or something. But he was, he couldn't just leave and go to West Africa because he was starting his own career in the States. But he supported her in her dreams. And she went over there and took the 4 of us. And my little brother and sister were in diapers. So I've just always respected that tenacity about pursuing your dreams, no matter what the circumstances, no excuses. If there's one lesson that I got from my mom, that would be it. Now, as
Yeah.
far as Africa, like what I learned over there, to be honest, as a 9-year-old kid growing up in the 80s, I didn't want to move to Africa. You
Sure.
remember what was on TV, the images we saw of Africa. It was all like starving children and, send money to Africa. And I was like, when I remember when my mom told me we were moving to Africa, I was like, I don't want to go to Africa. I don't want to starve. That was my 9-year-old view of it. But when we went over there, she was a doctor for the Peace Corps, and it was a very eye-opening experience. And I bonded with the people well there. I used to ride my bike all over the country. We were in Niamey, Niger. Niamey is the capital. And I learned to appreciate what we have in America very much. There were, I could tell you just so many stories of, not just the poverty. I mean, of course, there's that, but the political unrest. We couldn't go on certain streets. If you stop on a certain street, they might open fire because they fear that somebody's trying to assassinate the president. I mean, it's so many things that I have appreciation for. And you have this culture shock when you come back to the States, even like when you see the choices of cereal that are available on the cereal aisle in the grocery store, like things like that. There have literally been instances of people passing out from culture shock in the grocery store because of the enormity of choices that we have compared to in countries in West Africa. So it's a very eye-opening experience. It probably fueled my passion for travel that I have today, and also fueled my empathy for other cultures and being able to see the world through so many different lenses and truly appreciate the global aspect of everything.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a greater educator than travel, right? Like, I mean, it's just one of these things. And I'll tell anybody who will listen, anyone who gets down on America in a hurry, I'm like, hey, man, you got to thicken up your passport because, like, you
Yeah,
better go and find out how other people are living, because we got it really, really good,
right,
and people don't know. And of course, like you find out, this is not, you didn't go over there and sat in the middle of a desert starving with pygmy children that were, bloated, and that was not the case in the cities of the capitals. But there's a different order, and there's a lack of order in a lot of ways in third world countries that are alarming, that become dangerous, not like just like common danger. This is life or death danger.
right.
And you do very well with your social. You're highlighting your travel, which I love. Why don't you tell real quick, everybody, Ethan, where they can find you on the social and your TEDx talk too?
Yeah, check me out. You can find links to everything on my website, ethanking.com, just exactly how it's spelled, ETHAN. And on my social, I'm probably most active on Instagram, which is the same thing, same handle, ethanking.co. And my TEDx talk, you'll find links to it there. And on YouTube, if you just search Ethan King TEDx, you can check out my TEDx talk.
Yeah, which is great. You and I actually were on the same stage and filmed our TEDx's at the same weekend, which is awesome. Maybe even the same day.
Yeah.
So very special time. And so now I want to talk about one real quick before we get into the content of Ethan King. Is one thing most people don't know about you is that you received a very prestigious award from the president of the University of Georgia once upon a time. And it happened to be the same president that suspended you from that college years before for a semester of school. I want you to walk us through that experience.
Yeah. So, as I alluded to earlier, I always had a hustler spirit. And that when I was younger, around 18, 19 years old, I was very misguided. And I was on the wrong side of the law, doing all kinds of things, everything from a little bit of selling this and that, illegal substances to shoplifting, all kinds of stuff. And I got caught up in lying to administrators and being a troublemaker, fighting, got called to the president's office. And this isn't like getting called to the principal's office of high school. This is University of Georgia, a huge institution. I think like 30,000 kids there. So to get called to the president's office, I was like, man, holy crap, I must have really done something bad here. I thought he was going to expel me from school, but he showed mercy and only suspended me. So I was able to come back and graduate after that semester. Fast forward years and, went through ups and downs in starting my business and learning about business through things like EO and reading all kinds of business books and seminars and conferences. And we got recognized for a business growth award called the Bulldog 100. And it recognizes the 100 fastest growing companies owned by UGA alumni. And we've been fortunate to be on this list 4 times now. But the first time that we won that award, this was the first business award I had ever won. And to get called on stage to get handed the trophy, and it happens to be.
How old are you at that time?
At the time that was 2011. I guess I was about 30-ish.
It's almost a decade after school.
Yeah, good decade. I think it was. I think when I look back, it was almost a decade, maybe 11 or 12 years after I had that suspension. But I have the photo of President Adams handing me the award for business growth, and the irony of I remembered sitting in his office. Now, people always ask me, did he remember you? And the answer is, I have no idea. And I wasn't about to ask him and mess up that moment because in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I hope they don't take this award away from me once they realize that I was a troublemaker in school. But I know that was neither here nor there. I didn't have time to stop and have a conversation with him. It was just 100 people going on stage back to back. But it was a full circle moment in my life that to me signified going things in the wrong way, as to not being in alignment with the universe's design for my life, to being finally on the right track and what I feel like I was supposed to be doing, like what my calling is. And to me, that was kind of a validation or a certification for that.
Yeah. No, I think it's so good. I want to dive into your past real quick. I want to talk about a couple things about your business now and the things you're doing and things you and I are doing. And but do you think, like, what do you think attributed to the decisions you were making as a young man? Did you have a good model of people showing you how to do business the right way and create it? I mean, you started that in college with the stuffforgreeks.com, kind of out of a class project almost, right?
Yeah.
And then, but as a young man, were there mentors, or were you seeing like, hey, this is what success looks around my neighborhood? Like, you pickpocket someone, you might take something, you might sell something that you shouldn't be selling,
Mm.
that was how other people made money. Like, what do you think attributed to your, there's a path here, right? And so for me, there's a fork in the road, and your first one, you chose kind of the wrong fork, right? Like, hey, I could make
Right.
money, and there's two ways to make money. I could take this road, kind of do it, a, below the line, or I could take this road and do it the below line. And I want to really emphasize this point. Ethan King was the president of the Entrepreneur Organization in Atlanta. They are probably one of the most premier chapters in the world of over 18,000 entrepreneurs. And if anyone's ever led a group of entrepreneurs, you may be a fabulous and extensive cat herder, because this is not an easy job. If you want to test your
Right.
leadership, lead the leaders, because it is an ultimate test of your leadership skill. And
Mm.
you had a fabulous year in Atlanta, and led that very well, and were highly decorated for your efforts there and your volunteerism, because that's a non-paid position, of course.
Right.
This is a test of faith to join in as a president in that organization, and there are all sorts of value get received from that, but boy, not without a bunch of sacrifice. So
Right.
tell me, walk me through the fork in the road and how you got there.
And yeah, first of all, you're right. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said, we are the sum of the choices we make. So
Yeah.
we're faced with, like, they say 35,000 different choices every single day as humans. And then,
That's
I don't know.
that's the average.
That's the average.
That's the average, Ethan. So the last time I looked, if you are a founder in a company or an
Mm,
executive as a president, CEO, COO, you are facing over 50,000.
mm. Yeah, that's a great
How about
point.
that number, right? Like,
Right.
from the time you get up to what shirt I'm going to put on, what hat, what
Mhm.
tie, what car will I take, where do I got to be? I mean, these decisions just keep rolling, and I think people often also look at people that are in that space and say, "Wow, you asked me a lot of quick decisions with you. You need a lot of answers. You get very good at questioning people the right questions, because you don't have a lot of time to make decisions."
Right, exactly. So of course, most of those decisions are like these micro decisions, and then some in life are major decisions. And you asked about a fork in the road. Um, I remember you asked about things that people don't know about me a lot, but during that rough period in my life where I came out of school, I had a degree in art, had a bit of a criminal record. It was very hard for me to find a job. So I was unemployed for a couple of years. I was just working like odd gigs here and there. Probably the most humiliating of which, I was taking out the trash at a strip club in Atlanta at night while I was taking graphic design classes in the day. And then the DJs at the strip club found out that I had some graphic design skill. So they would hire me to do the flyers and the posters to promote the events for the strip club. Now that's great because I was like, oh, now I'm working in my field. However, I couldn't use any of that stuff in my portfolio because it
Yeah,
was too
right,
raunchy,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So I felt kind of trapped in this lifestyle and in this cycle, and I didn't see a way out. But I could have left and tried to pursue something out, but that was a fork in the road moment, and I was hesitant to make that decision and go a different direction and use my talents for something else. But then sometimes, whatever your beliefs are, God, the universe, sometimes the universe just knocks on your door and kind of pushes you in the right direction. And that happened for me. One night I was on my way to one of the clubs and I got carjacked at gunpoint.
Wow.
And yeah, the robber, he took everything. I ran for my life, hopped over a fence. And for me, that was just, I had that epiphany. I was like, I am never going back to using my talents for that, because I know I was destined for something a lot greater. So that is when I decided to use my talents in a totally different direction. And in fact, I mean, thinking back on it, it seems like something out of a book or a movie. But when I tell you that from the moment I made that decision at that fork in the road, about 30 days later, I was getting all kinds of invitations. Like, I got an email from the Tyler Perry company. And at this
Wow.
time, this is before Tyler Perry had went mainstream and started making
Sure,
movies.
sure.
At the time, he was only doing plays. Well, his assistant reached out, saw that I was a graphic designer, and his assistant was like, "Hey, we're looking for a graphic design firm to do all of the merchandise for Tyler Perry's stage plays." I had never heard of Tyler Perry, but I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll meet with him and see what's up." Well, we ended up designing the merchandise for all of his plays for the next 10 years.
Wow.
And at the same time, that's when we Stuff for Greeks, which I started as a school project doing fraternity and sorority gear, that started growing. It started getting business from getting orders from sororities across the country, like people I didn't know, and it's still thriving to this day. So when you back to the alignment thing, like when you get in alignment and you choose the right fork in the road and you hone those decision making skills, that's when you really win in life.
Mm. Yeah, and I'm sure you probably cover a little bit of this at Wealth Beyond Money, right? In
Oh
your
yeah.
book. And I was listening to Andy Frisella yesterday. Andy's an entrepreneur out of St. Louis. He owns First Form. He's got one of the top rated podcasts. And Andy talked about being stabbed in the face at 23 years old.
Ooh.
Stabbed in the face. He was like, probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. He's like, I have faced death twice in my life. My own, you know, body, mind, soul, and what it means. And he's like, probably the best thing that ever happened to me at that age, because I got real serious about where I wanted to spend my time on this earth and what I want to
Mhm.
be doing. He goes, I have no problem waking up knowing exactly what my focus is every day and how I'm going to have impact and contribute, because I'm not going back to that guy. Like
Right.
I'm not doing that thing again. And I was just like, man, you know, um, it's that near death experience that I've seen shake a lot of people's life up. And
Yeah.
it's staggering, right? Because when you're faced with your own mortality, and I think that's what kind of happened as a country, right? I look at like you look at like October 1, 2001 in the United States, and every church is full, right? Like
Mm.
it's like, hey man, we just had a terrorist attack on our country, and everyone got very serious about patriotism, what's important, my family's what's important. And I think we went through a little bit of that with the pandemic again. You start wondering like,
Hmm.
hey, where do I really need to be spending my time here? And I think these things that happen sometimes, while that may not have been a direct threat to our mortality, because I don't think it's enough to go, oh, I heard Ethan went through this hard thing, I'm going to change.
Right.
I think sometimes people got to really feel that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But man, that's an amazing fork. So by the way, this is a great testimony, and I'd like you to tell everyone, Ethan. So you went down a wrong fork, decided it was the wrong way, and you backed up, reversed, and said, "Listen, it's kind of a shit road, right? Pardon my
Yeah.
language." And like I backed out of that, and I'm going down a better road that I think is just better for me, better for my future, better for those around me. And you made a hard line choice to stay in that lane on that road. And hey, man, was it that hard to back up and choose something new?
Yeah, it's hard in the moment.
Yep.
Of course, looking like Steve Jobs says, you can always connect the dots looking backwards. But when you're in the mess of the middle, it's hard to see.
Yep.
If you're at a fork in the road and you're kind of looking down each path and trying to figure out, well, which one should I go down? It might be a little cloudy and a little foggy and hazy, and you really can only see so far. But you have to imagine, like, what is this path going to look like if I really keep going down this path, and what is this path going to look like if I keep going down this path? And I think that's what really helps you make the right decision. But when you're going through it, it can be very tough. And I've adopted practices like meditation and gratitude journaling, and I know a lot of that can seem kind of like woo woo, but I believe it's very scientific when it comes to the mind, because the mind, if you think about it like an attic, it can get very cluttered and messy, and you got stuff jumbled all around in there. It's hard for you to make a clear decision. But if you take time, and I practice transcendental meditation, but really clean up that attic and dust out the cobwebs in your head and organize things where they need to go and really take the time to do that, it actually speeds things up, at least in my life, and gives me more clarity and helps me make better decisions. Now, I wasn't meditating at that time when that moment happened. And what you're talking about, yeah, a lot of times it's trauma or something that shocks us into, or basically scares us, just like 9/11, just like the pandemic. It causes us to reevaluate and scares us into another path. But that can be dangerous. And if you can fine tune your life to make those decisions without having to go through the trauma, because sometimes that trauma could lead to you being injured or disability or death or whatever, right? So you're not always, I'm thankful for the grace that I wasn't harmed, but sometimes people are harmed. So being able to make those decisions and act as if like you're on a burning platform. There's this thing in behavioral science called the burning platform theory. So if you were standing on a platform that's on fire and you're thinking about whether to jump or not, jump into the water, well, you're going to jump because the platform's on fire. You have no choice, right? It's a quick thought. But the problem comes in when most things in our life are like kind of a slow burn. Like you just feel a little bit of warmth and you're not quite sure, or like the frog in the boiling water is another metaphor. So it's kind of like tricking your brain into thinking that the platform is burning. So you actually take action. And you said something earlier about never going back. If you look at those moments in your life where you decided, I'm never going back to that old life, whether that be in your fitness or in your relationships or in your business habits, whatever it is. But if you look at those never going back moments, that's when the magic really happens and the growth happens in your life, because you've changed going forward.
I want to lean deeper into that because to me, Ethan, the rewards always are for the courageous, right? There's a lot of courage. I have a lot of admiration for Ethan King because you have courage to go and do that. And I want to tell people, like, courage is not the absence of fear, because I don't think Ethan King's a no fear guy, right? But I want you to talk to how you manage that fear as you're going through it, because there's some courage to go, I'm going to back out of this road and I'm going to take this road. And you, by the way, my gut feeling tells me you know that rough road better than you know the good road, the right road, the righteous area, the business road, because you had more experience in the hustler road than the up and up above the line road, if that's fair. So I want you to talk to me about the courage it takes to do it, how you face the fear, because you and I in our retreats, we teach this. We teach clarity. We give you playbooks to move forward, facing things in your life with tools that will actually take your wealth beyond money to the next level, using AI and innovation today to fuel that clarity of where you want to go, using systems that address these people. And we'll have a link to that if you want to catch us in Greece this summer, if you want to catch us in the fall up in northern Michigan on the Golf and Growth, because that's going to be incredible. And we are just having some great weeks with fabulous people that are taking their games to the next level. And of course, you and I have spent a lot of time with the people who have taken their game to the next level. So please speak for a minute into that courage and fear.
So there's a saying, we often choose comfortable hells over I'm sorry, we often choose familiar hells over unfamiliar heavens. And
Mm.
so we get comfortable in life. Even though we know it's not the ideal situation, we're often scared of change. Even though that change could be better, but we often stay within our familiar hells. And I think it does take a lot of courage to push through the pain. But when you have a vision that's bigger, then that vision is what pulls you forward and pulls you through the pain. I mean, we've talked about a lot of my business successes, but there've been so many struggles and painful moments that I've had to push through. I mean, I remember one time we went through this nasty massive lawsuit that almost bankrupted us. And it was during those times where I had to get really lean and get really strategic. And that's when, this was over a decade ago, but that's when I really leaned into automation and implementing things. I mean, now AI is all the buzzword since ChatGPT came out almost 2 years ago. Like, everybody's talking about it now. But I've been in automation for decades, because when your back is against the wall and you have to persevere and you have to win no matter what, then you figure out how to make things happen. And I figured out how to do more with less. And that's what I teach now. What I'll be teaching at the workshop is how to implement AI and automation into your digital marketing so that you don't need a whole marketing team anymore. You can accomplish so much with very little now, if you just know the right tools and techniques. And you don't have to be a programmer. Dude, I was an art major. I'm not sitting here like writing code and things like that. I don't know anything about that. So if I can do it, you can do it too. And it's just all these tools. I teach people how to achieve their ambitions faster, because often we just make things more complicated than they need to be. And one thing I talk about in my book, Life Beyond Money, and in my TED Talk, I preach about simple, SIMPLE. It's all about your spirituality, intellect, money, your physical presence, your love, and your entertainment. Those what I call the 6 dimensions of success, and honing in on each one. And you can really, by focusing on constant contextual calibration across those 6 areas, and not trying to focus on the false concept of life balance, you can really have it all in all of those 6 areas. And AI, automation, those are just the tools that are working right now, but it's about the philosophies that you need to implement into your life across those 6 dimensions of success.
Love it. And I love it. Just a little shout out for winners find a way right there. Thank you, Ethan, for, winners do find a way to win.
That's
And I
right.
love the quote, winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. 2 superpowers inside your company I want to talk about. The first one is sales and marketing. I mean, you're a hustler from the word go, but you're an artist. And I mean, the one thing that most artists don't get is that sales are a huge deal, right? And you develop an e-commerce structure and a retail structure now of scalable and winning productivity of your sales and marketing. Walk me through how you became. So is this part of the automation? Is this part of the systems that you've put in place?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're all artists. If you're an entrepreneur, you're an artist of some sort. You have some craft, some passion that you want to get out into the world, and that's what you love doing. But with entrepreneurship, you have to do other things. You have to do the bookkeeping. You have to do the sales. You have to manage your employees. You have to do all these other things. You have to pay taxes, insurance. So when I think about it in that regard, what I do, I've thought about art. Did you know Andy Warhol had a factory of people like making his art? And Andy Warhol, the pop artist with
Sure.
the paintings of Marilyn Monroe and stuff. Well, he really revolutionized art. So he could take the talent that was in his head. And of course, most artists just make one piece. Well, he figured out how to mass produce his art because he had a factory, and his factory was very famous. So in learning about things like that, I'm like, I can apply those same systems and processes. Sure, Andy Warhol didn't have AI and automation back then, but there's always a system, right, that you can implement. And it starts with just taking each task that happens in your business and mapping it out. Like, this is how you do this step by step, 1, 2, 3. And then you look at all the tasks that you do each day. Like, if you're going from like a solopreneur to a small business, to grow it, to really scaling up your company, you look at each task you do. It's like, well, first of all, does this task actually need to be done? And if not, eliminate it. So that's the E. If it needs to be done, then figure out a way that you can automate it. That's the A. If you can't automate it, then you need to train someone else to do it by just writing out the steps in a document, recording a video, and showing it to them. That's the T. EAT. Eliminate, automate, train. Treat every task like that. And that's how you systematize your business for scaling. And I believe you can do it for any business, because if you can do it with art, like Warhol was doing. I mean, my business, like, we do art on the back of jackets. These are custom pieces. Each jacket is like custom made for the person So how do you take that? I mean, I used to be the guy who was doing it all from start to finish, from the design, the embroidery, answering the phones at the same time, sending emails. But I took each one of those parts and systematized it and trained others how to do it. And that's the same thing you need to do in your business. And the reason that we shine in sales and marketing is because I figured out early from following people like Dan Kennedy that really every business is marketing. Like if you don't have sales and marketing, you don't have a business. I don't care how good it is. So you have to I realized early on, like I have to learn how to sell things. Another early job I had was telemarketing. I worked at this company called Dial America when I was in college. We would just call people back to back, and I was selling like this insurance program, and I had the script memorized, internalized, and I just learned how to deliver it, and it was grueling. It was a tough job. It was very exhausting to just be constantly pitching back to back every single day. But I'm glad that I did that because it shaped a lot of the things that I have now in being able to speak in an influential way and take a script and make it deliverable, but also figuring out the reason why I was one of the top salespeople in college at Dial America is because I said, well, on the other side, what is the true benefit to this person? Like, that's what it is. Like, I need to show them how this actually helps them. Whereas everyone else in the call center was just focused on just reading the script and getting through the day. But I really wanted to deliver value to the other person.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, I think that's it's funny that you learn that in marketing. I think the other side of that learning in college is perseverance, right? There's a lot of no's to get to a yes,
Yeah.
and you learn to deal with some failure because it's all right. And I think it's funny for me. You know, I'm a baseball guy, so there's a lot of failure, right?
Mhm.
And of course, you know, I never looked at failure as final, right? That's just a setback. Like I'm gonna get another at bat. The game's gonna, keep going, and even when the game ends, there's gonna be another one tomorrow. Like, you
Right.
know, it's it's always been intriguing how people envision failure. It's tough though in sales. Like it's tough that people are saying no to. It feels personal. Like they're saying no to me. They're saying no to my baby, my product, my whatever, and sometimes it gets personalized and gets rough for people, and I really appreciate that. One of the challenges you faced, and you move fast, Ethan. One of the challenges you faced in business is, um, man, I mean, Bulldog 100. You receive these awards and accolades throughout your career, and yet sometimes celebrating to stop and celebrate the growth, the wins, and all those good things. Um, how do you get your head around that? I mean, admittedly, you said this has been a challenge. A, why do you think it's been a challenge to you? And B, how would it look awesome if you were doing it really well?
Yeah, I guess that's one of that's the curse of the ambitious, right? I'm Once we achieve a goal or a milestone, I never feel satisfied. I'm always looking at, well, what's the next thing? And I need to be more intentional about really stopping to celebrate the wins along the way and to really celebrate them with my team. It's definitely a weak area of ours. And we did do it in the past, kind of pre-pandemic. We would do things like have company outings and like go shoot paintball and go to Top Golf, things like that. And I think it just really got interrupted when we couldn't do a lot of the in-person stuff, and I haven't gotten back to that celebration, and we definitely need to do that. So I appreciate that reminder. I do think it's important. I mean, we as entrepreneurs, we work hard, your team members work hard, and we need that dopamine hit. We need that reward, that stimulus to keep us going, that appreciation for what we've accomplished. And we need to remind ourselves to pause and look back sometimes, because as winners, as entrepreneurs, we have a tendency to always be looking forward, and we don't often stop and smell the roses.
Yeah, I love from the strategic coach. Dan wrote The Gap in the Gain, right? And I'm terrible at it. I'm not good at looking back at how far we've gained. right?
Yeah.
Hey, we set out like 2 years ago to be this size of company, and I do this with companies all the time, right? They double their EBITDA in like 2 years, man. It's like, oh, we were $2 million, value our EBITDA, with a $10 million value, 5x, and now we're $4 million, of EBITDA, and you're like, wow, that's all of a sudden $20 million of value or more as companies become more efficient and better systems. Of course, their multiples are higher, right? And they've
Mhm.
got the better people because they've got teams that are crushing it out there. And again, things we teach inside our workshop. So, um, man, I'm the guy who sometimes sees the gap instead of the gain, right?
Mhm.
Like, hey, oh, we should have been to 4 million by now, so the gap is a $500,000, and I'm frustrated that we're not there. Instead of the gain, like, we were 2 and now we're 3.5. Like,
Right.
that's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
like, this is a massive increased value to who we are as a firm and how much people have contributed to that. And so I love the story of the gap and the gain. And man, I find myself doing it with my children. They've
Yeah.
come a long way, and I don't know if it's the entrepreneurial curse of the high expectations. And set, one of the things you'll appreciate because you're a Georgia Bulldog guy and you've seen a couple national championships here, is that how tough for a coach
Yeah.
who has spent so much time becoming the national champion, and the moment you win it, it's you've got 1,000 alumni that have all spent millions of dollars that you need to go see and meet with. You've got another set of recruits that everyone will be like, "What have you done for me lately? How
Yeah.
does 2025 look? Because 2024 is over." It's
Yeah.
like, man, you can celebrate it for about 5 seconds, and now it's
Yeah.
on to like the next year because I know I'm going to be at that standard of what have we done for you. And there's a lot of money. I'm not saying it's a bad job. You've seen the money paid, and I think your guy just got paid a boatload, by the way.
Right.
I think you just got the more than the Georgia economy. And so yeah, the GDP of Georgia just went to your head coach. So it's amazing. But these are the challenges of highly successful people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and I love that you teach growing business valuation and growing EBITDA because that's what's really important. And a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we get focused on the vanity metrics, which is revenue growth.
Mhm.
And as they say, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. So sometimes we don't feel like we're growing if the top line hasn't moved that much. But when you come in and things that you teach in the workshop are growing the EBITDA and actually growing the value of your business, that's what's more important. But sometimes we just don't feel it. We don't feel um oh, I'm quote unquote winning because we may only be looking at top line growth because that's kind of how society has molded us.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, your recognition of that, Ethan, because one of my most proud accomplishment in my coaching career in businesses, not my coaching career in professional sports, but in businesses, we had a client early in our years where they were retracted. They were about in that, $70 million range, had retracted nearly $15 million. They were in the healthcare field and they were having a significant hit to medical billing and how things
Mm.
were going to change for Medicare. And man, when they did that, you retract, you lose people, you're immediately consolidating, and they increased their EBITDA $500,000.
Mm.
And I was like, man, it's amazing what happens when we start measuring the right things and we
Yeah.
look at the metrics to actually become an efficient business that's doing it the right way. And we're not just measuring anything, we're measuring the right things, which is the last thing I want to talk to you because you've become a process geek, right? I mean, you've
Yeah.
become a guy who really gets what's measured and how we improve, what's measured and how we improve, and how that measurement changes our improvement because one of the things, and I'm a goal guy, I've always been a goal guy, Ethan, but when we set goals, I look at like that cement staircase, right?
Mhm.
When you look at the front staircase to your house, there's a massive piece of a cement that's got 7 stairs. And if you look at it from the side, you realize that bottom stair is solid cement all the way through from the front of the stair all the way to the house. And
Mhm.
then the 6th stair all the way to the house. From the 5th stair, boom. And so you realize, like, hey, when we're coming up and we're developing process, once we've done that first goal, we've made a process that's repeatable and sustainable. So we're going up to the next process, step 6, step 5, and realize that below that is a firm foundation of process. We're never going back and
Mhm.
losing that value. We're moving forward. So I say, man, I accomplished a goal once, but if I accomplish the process right, I win over and over and over again, because that process is in perpetuity.
That's right. That's right.
So talk to me about your measured and improving systems and what you figured out and dialed in with your organizations.
Yeah, I mean, the easy example of this is with your email marketing. And for anyone who thinks email marketing is dead, you couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, email is still winning as far as marketing goes. But when it comes to email automation sequences, I mean, we have so many sequences mapped out where we used to do them manually and write each email. But when you realize you're kind of saying the same sequence of events to, depending on the situation, whether it's a follow-up email or different campaigns, we have very targeted email sequences for like each fraternity and sorority. They get a different email sequence and an automation. But you sit down and you do it one time. You build out this sequence, whether it's a 6 email sequence or a 12 email sequence, and you invest the time. That's that long step you were talking about. That's that foundational step. And then you don't have to do it again. You've put your marketing on autopilot, but then you continue to build on top of that and building more automations and the manual processes the manual marketing messages that you send out from time to time, and your SMS marketing. But now you have that foundation always going. That's why I fell in love with automation back in 2011. And I've never looked back since, because it's just like, how can I continue to layer more and more automation on everything that we do? I mean, like, even if you email us for a sales quote at Zeus's Closet, then and we send you back a quote. Well, sometimes you never hear back from a prospect if you email them, and then the conversation just kind of falls off. Well, you can use a tool like followup.cc, and you just put that in the blind copy field of your email, and it will follow up with the person. You can even set up advanced automations where it'll bounce it back to their inbox and say, hey, just following up, we didn't hear back from you. Well, instead of me or another human being spending time following up, it's automatically done. And it continues to follow up over and over again. And that has saved us. It has redeemed so many sales that would have otherwise been lost, and contributed to our bottom line more than you even know. And it's not always just someone ignoring you. That the email may have went to their junk folder, or they just
Yeah.
got busy, or you just never know. So the follow-up system, the fortune is in the follow-up. So that's just one example of, when you talked about the stairs being the foundation, to me, that's one of the fundamental layers, is having a solid marketing automation process set up for your business.
So good. Yeah, I love that. And I also, I'm going to take a couple liberties here on that, because then you can kind of, great, by the way, tool, followup.cc, great tool. And, but I see, my first envision of that is, as a young man starting out in 2011 of automation, you spend all this time and you're not sure, maybe necessarily, am I targeting the right people yet? But I've got this automation. I've got the first stair. And then the 6th stair is like, hey, I just tightened this up by 20% of where I need to be spending my time, where my clients are. And then I do it again on step 5, step 4, step 3, step 2, step 1. You have a small landing of where exactly I need to be with the right clients, of who buys from me. And I stay focused on that as I grow. Yet the foundation below it is always solid, right? Do
Right.
you envision that kind of same thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's constant There's a Japanese term kaizen, right? I'm sure you
Yep.
heard of constant,
Continuous improvement.
continuous improvement. And yeah, when you build these machines and you constantly go back and tweak the machines and you change the wording and you change the timing, it's an ongoing process, but it's still you have the machine exists. One big takeaway I got from Elon Musk's most recent biography, the Walter Isaacson Elon Musk biography, is that Elon spends his time working on the machines that build the machines. So he's not spending his time focusing on building Teslas. He's focused on building the robots and then constantly improving the robots in the factory that build the Teslas. And it was a big aha for me because everybody can apply this to their own business. In every business, you have a deliverable. It's a product or a service that you deliver to your customer. Well, it's in most 90, probably, I don't know, 95% of US businesses, it's the person, the owner, directly delivering the product or service. But instead, if you focus on building and constantly improving the machines or the automations or the robots or whatever it is in your business that does the output for you, then that's how you're able to scale up faster and have a foundation and create a bigger company without it overwhelming you.
So good. That's so good. Ethan, man, thrilled to have you on board, man, today. As an author, now a fellow author of Leading Winning Teams, I'm excited about that book coming out for everyone out
Me
there.
too.
That will be here in August. It is below in the link. You got pre-sales if you're selling. If you're just buying one book, do it on Amazon.com. The pre-sale link's in there. Buy two, and you send me the receipts, and I'll send you a playbook on based on my TEDx talk of the pain exchange on discipline, and you can learn those just like Ethan and I had to learn through trial and error these challenges of discipline, the challenges of systems, and everyone has to go to school, and it doesn't stop at university. It doesn't stop from your classes from 9 to 3, kids. Like, learning is an ongoing deal, and when he talks about Kaizen, this is continuous improvement. You never stop learning. And we used Kaizen back when I was 25 years old with the Cleveland Indians in our development program. Like, Kaizen, like, you are on a journey of continuous improvement as a pro athlete, and it'll never stop. You'll never be like, oh, I've arrived. I got to the big leagues. Listen, if you want to stay, you don't improve and you don't innovate, people will pass you. They will pass you by so quickly. Everyone's coming for your job. No one gives your job away at that level. Like when Ethan King's the president of the company, he's not handing the job to somebody else. Like, you're going to have to go take that job from somebody who's already really good at it. So, like, you can't rest on your laurels for a minute, but please check it out. You want to do bulk orders, please hit over 20 books. You can do that on Barnes & Noble. We have some speaking opportunities for bulk orders and things like that. You can see that at TrentMClark.com and on leadershipity.com. Check that out. And you can also find it at leadershipity.com and Trent M. Clark. You will soon see our retreats for Ethan King, myself, Rachel Weaver, 3 authors that are joining together for a couple great workshops. We have Italy coming up in July. Super excited about that one, my man. And then, of course, in the fall, Colors of Northern Michigan for Golf and Growth, which will be such a cool little setting and a very intimate network among people. We do some pretty intimate retreats, Ethan, and I love that because, man, we meet fabulous people with great networking, just like we always have in our entrepreneur organization members and YPO and everything else. It's been a fabulous way to get to know people. Tell people real quick where they can find you before we go.
Yeah, reach out. EthanKing.com is my website. We can find links to all of my social media accounts. Feel free to shoot me a DM on your favorite channel. You can book me for speaking gigs, workshops, and you'll find links to the book and everything on my website, EthanKing.com.
That's awesome. Ethan King, man, thanks for joining us on the Winners Find a Way show every Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific on LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and the Leadership YouTube channel. And you can always find our podcast on all your major networks. I'm pretty excited. We just hit the top 3% on all downloads. So pumped up about that. So thank you for tuning in and dropping and listening to the show. Always good to see everybody. And we will see you next time on the Winners Find a Way.
All right. Thanks, Trent.